Over Havana, the night looks like someone has erased half the sky. Crowded rooftops, peeling walls, tired yellow windows staring out into the darkness. And above that maze, two silhouettes are running. Boots hammer against wet tiles. A man in a Panama hat clutches a locked briefcase to his chest, gasping for air as he jumps across the gaps between the roofs. Behind him, half a step closer with every stride, is Kane Rourke, a shadow that refuses to let go. They leap over a narrow alley between two buildings. Far below, the only thing people hear is salsa music from some bar, laughter, clinking glasses. No one down there has any idea a life-or-death chase is unfolding above their heads. The music tightens. Kane raises his gun, taking a quick aim in the dark. He has exactly one shot, but the tiles are slick with rain, the sea wind cutting across his line of sight. A gunshot cracks the night. The bullet grazes the man's arm, and the briefcase slips from his hand, skidding across the roof and rolling toward the edge. He curses, spinning around. Instead of going for the case, he charges straight at Kane. The momentum of two bodies colliding turns their sprint into a long, helpless slide on the wet tiles, broken pieces scraping away under them. The edge of the rooftop rushes up to meet them. The briefcase tumbles over. Kane just barely hooks a hand through its handle, and that same force drags him too far. In an instant, both he and his target slip off the edge, ending up dangling from a rusted drainage pipe hanging in midair. Beneath them, a narrow alley, trash, puddles, broken antennas. The pipe whines and shakes, ready to rip off the wall at any second. The man in the Panama hat hangs on with one hand, reaching toward the briefcase Kane is gripping. His breath is hot in the humid air as he growls, "That list is going to kill more people than you think, and your name is on it too, Rourke." Kane tightens his grip on the handle. He can hear his heartbeat blend into the city below. Cars, music, voices. He doesn't answer. He just focuses on trying to pull them both up. The pipe screams again and gives way a little. They drop another few inches, boots brushing empty air. The man in the hat looks at Kane and lets out a dry, bitter laugh, eyes like he already knows how this ends. "You can't save them all. Not this time." Metal snaps with a sharp crack. One of them loses their grip. A heavy impact echoes up the alley, and the sound is cut off mid-fall, swallowed by a distant ambulance siren. Salsa music swells back in. The music darkens, leaving one question hanging in the air. Who just hit the ground? Part 2. Kane and Havana, Scars of the Past. A few hours earlier, high above the coast near Havana, an old military plane groans like it's tired of being forced into service. Kane Rourke sits alone by a small round window. Faded yellow light spills across his weathered face, faint scars along his temple, eyes that have seen more than anyone ever should. He looks down at the black ocean below, where the moon is shattered into pieces by the waves. In his earpiece, a distorted, icy voice speaks, his handler, the only person who still uses his real name. "Welcome back, Rourke. To the rest of the world, you died 3 years ago. To us, you're a weapon that doesn't exist on paper." Kane says nothing. He listens to the drone of the engines, the hiss of the wind, the slow, heavy beat of his own heart. The voice continues. "Something called the Orchid List has been stolen. It's the names of over 300 deep cover agents we have around the world. If it goes up for sale one by one, they'll be dragged out into the light and executed." An image flashes in Kane's mind. A woman with her hair tied back, sharp eyes that sometimes still remember how to smile. Lena. She pulled him out of a collapsing building in the Middle East when everything around them was fire and bullets. Her name is almost certainly buried somewhere on that list. The handler's voice drops lower. You owe her a life, don't you? Consider this your chance to pay it back. We have reason to believe the Orchid List has been moved into Havana, handled by an information broker. On paper, your mission is simple. Find the list, recover it, and, if necessary, silence anyone who's seen it. Kane presses his lips together. He's done dirtier things than that in his past. But every time he closes someone's file, another invisible scar burns into his mind. The plane banks, and city lights appear beneath the clouds. Havana, a tangled web of brightness wrapped around thick patches of darkness. The music shifts into a slow, heavy rhythm with a faint Latin undertone. For a moment, he remembers something an old officer told him. Havana isn't just a city, it's a trap wrapped in sugar. Stay here long enough, and you either die or you become the very thing you swore you'd never turn into. The wheels slam down onto the runway. The door opens, and hot, humid air hits his face. Salt, fuel, and something else he can't quite name. Kane steps out, a small bag over his shoulder, hands empty, no insignia, no rank. To every official system, he does not exist. But to Havana tonight, he's about to become the newest shadow, slipping through its alleys, hunting for a list that could redraw the colors of the entire world. Somewhere in the blend of salsa music and distant waves, a hunt has already begun. And Kane Rourke has no idea yet that his own name is on the very thing he's been ordered to bring back. The music holds its tension, ready to carry us into the next scene, the bar called La Sombra.
You're listening to Midnight Action Stories, thrilling crime tales after dark. If you enjoy these late-night missions, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop your questions or theories in the comments below.
The salsa music fades into the distance, replaced by slow, heavy drums and a crawling bass line. In a narrow Havana side street, there's a small bar wedged between cracked walls and tangled cables. They call it La Sombra, the shadow. Its neon sign flickers like it can't decide whether to stay alive or finally burn out. Kane Rourke stands in front of the peeling wooden door, the back of his shirt damp with tropical humidity. He pauses for exactly one breath. To the world, he's a name erased from every list, which makes this exactly the kind of place meant for him. He pushes the door open. Heat, smoke, and the smell of cheap liquor hit him like a wave. Drums, trumpets, laughter, arguments. The sound is thick enough to touch. Yellow, red, and green lights cross over one another, washing across faces that are happy, tired, dangerous, all mixed together. Kane moves through the crowd like a shadow nobody quite bumps into. His eyes never settle on any one face, but they don't miss a thing. A gun, half hidden at the small of someone's back. A glance that flinches away too fast in the corner. An old camera hanging from the ceiling, pointed at the wrong place. Near the back wall, next to a battered speaker, there's a small table. On it, a half-finished glass of rum, a cigarette burning down in an ashtray, and a woman sitting with her back to the stage. Inez Delgado. Once a cop, now something else. Something that survives in the cracks between law and crime. Kane pulls out the chair and sits across from her. No introduction. His name got here first, carried by rumors that a dead American has come back to Havana. Inez looks up, dark eyes quietly mapping every scar on his face. If she says anything, the noise of the bar devours it. What we hear instead is the way she crushes her cigarette in the tray, the way her fingers tighten just a little around the glass. and the small tilt of her chin toward the dark hallway behind the bar. An invitation or a trap. The music drops lower, drums fading, just the bass still pulsing underneath. They walk into a narrow corridor that smells of bleach and spilled beer. The neon from the bar dies at the doorway, leaving them with a single flickering fluorescent tube buzzing overhead. At the end of the hall, the restroom door stands open a crack. Inez pushes it wider. The hinges complain with a long, rusty groan. The first thing Kane sees is a shoe. Expensive, shiny, the kind of shoe that doesn't belong on this filthy tile floor in a place like La Sombra. Then the leg. Then the rest of the man, folded awkwardly into the corner, back against the wall, head tilted at a wrong, broken angle that only a dead neck can hold for that long. This is the broker, the man both the CIA and Aegis Division had been hunting, and someone has beaten them to him. Kane steps closer, his footsteps knocking flat against the tile. Above him, the fluorescent light stutters, turning the dead man's skin from gray to green to a sickly yellow. The man's fingers are locked tight around something. Kane bends down and pries open the stiff, cold hand. A small, crumpled scrap of paper, caked with dried blood. He unfolds it. Tiny printed lines appear, a fragment of the Orchid List, encoded names, symbols, mission numbers. In the middle of it all, one name is circled in messy ballpoint pen. Next to it, a tiny emblem that only people who've walked into the darkest corners of American covert operations would recognize. Kane has seen that symbol before, in windowless briefing rooms, on files that officially never existed. The music sinks lower, hanging on one long, uneasy note. Then he looks up and sees the wall above the body. Someone has dragged their finger through their own blood and scrawled a message in Spanish. The strokes are shaky, the lines uneven, but the words are clear. Not an enemy outside the border. The blood has dried dark, catching the harsh white light. Not an enemy outside. So who is it? Out in the bar, the music keeps playing like nothing's happened. But in this cramped little room, Kane understands something else. Whoever's hunting the Orchid List isn't some distant foreign threat. They're one of his own.
They leave the restroom as the music crashes back in, trying to scrub the image of the corpse from their minds. La Sombra swallows Kane and Inez back into its noisy chaos, then spits them out into the narrow, dark alley outside. The Havana night is heavy with humidity and the smell of gasoline. Old cars crawl past, coughing smoke, their yellow headlights stretching long, crooked shadows across the walls. Inez walks fast, not looking at Kane, but her voice cuts through the sound of traffic, low and steady. She talks about a place where almost anything can be bought, if you know the right people and the right hour. A night market for things that never show up on any receipt. Kane follows in silence, memorizing every turn, every sign, every face half hidden in the dark. Eventually, the alley widens into a patch of light and noise. The music shifts, picking up tempo and tension. A night market unfolds before him. Low tarps overhead, bare bulbs swinging on tangled wires, row after row of cramped stalls. Some sell food, some smuggled cigarettes, and some hold things that never sit on top of the table. Forged passports, hard drives, pistols with homemade suppressors in black plastic bags. This is where information is weighed like produce, where secrets are paid for in cash, and lives are counted as a discount.
Inez leads Kane through the throng to a corner where an old plastic table stands under a nest of cables. Behind it sits a thin man with slicked-back hair and a smile like a razor cut across his face. They call him El Gato, the cat. A cat that waits in the dark and scoops up whatever falls out of other people's pockets. Kane doesn't catch every word. El Gato's voice rises and falls like an amused whisper, sliding between jokes and threats. What matters are the pieces that leak through. The Orchid List is in Havana. It's no longer in the hands of the broker lying dead on that restroom floor. It has moved on to someone else's table. A name that sounds like a fairy tale, but behind it lies an entire network. El Mariposa, the butterfly. No one knows if he is one man or many, only that wherever there is valuable information changing hands, there's always a butterfly nearby, quietly collecting. El Gato says he's heard rumors the Orchid List is up for sale, not just to foreign enemies, but to anyone with enough money, including the shadows inside governments, inside the CIA, inside Aegis itself. Kane feels the blood in his veins run a little colder. Then El Gato leans forward, drops his voice. He mentions a name, Colonel Ruiz, a Cuban security officer with quiet arrangements with the CIA, a man said to be leading his own hunt for the same prize. A chill walks down Kane's spine. The clear borderlines of us and them in his head start to smear. But before he can work through it, the air in the market changes. The music tightens. A thin layer of silence ripples across the crowd. Vendors look up, their eyes drifting in the same direction. Kane turns. At the end of the row, a group of men is walking in, not rushing, but straight, like a blade. Buttoned shirts, dark pants. They could pass for ordinary officials if you ignored the tiny earpieces tucked behind their ears and the hard outlines beneath their jackets. At the front is a man with a squared jaw and eyes like stone. Inez's voice brushes Kane's ear, just for him. It's Ruiz. They fan out, slicing the market into sections. One of them lifts a photo. Kane catches a glimpse, the broker from La Sombra, and another blurred photo, rough, grainy, but unmistakably him. In those few seconds, Kane understands. He is not just the hunter in Havana anymore. He's become prey. The first shout goes up. "Security! Don't move!" The market explodes into chaos. People run, tables flip, merchandise crashes to the floor in a clatter of plastic and metal. Inez yanks Kane by the arm, slipping between two narrow stalls. Stands full of electronics and forged IDs turn into temporary walls blocking them from view. Footsteps pound behind them, louder than the music. They burst through a back exit into another alley, narrower, darker. Gunfire cracks behind them, a round punching into the wall, showering them with a puff of white dust. Kane turns, covering Inez, and in that instant catches a detail. One of Ruiz's men is clutching a comms device, but the faint logo on it isn't the standard Cuban security issue. It's a model from a small American contractor, the kind only units with quiet ties to the CIA can order. The lines blur even further. They keep running, cutting across a small concrete soccer court. Kids drop their game and scatter, shouting, the ball rolling alone into the dark. The music pounds, layered with footsteps, ragged breathing, distant shouting, a rope of sound pulled tight. Finally, they crash down a long set of stairs into a different street where car headlights sweep past, horns blare, People argue about normal, stupid things. The night market is gone behind them, as if it never existed at all. What remains is Kane, Inez, and a sharp new awareness that from this moment on, anyone flashing a badge at him might be one more hunter on his trail.
The Havana night has finally let them slip out of Ruiz's reach, but only for now. Kane and Inez stop in a narrow alley, backs pressed to a damp wall, breathing still heavy. Car horns and distant arguments hover somewhere far away, like they belong to another world. In Kane's hand is the crumpled scrap of paper taken from the dead man in Lo Sombra. He opens it again, letting the weak street lamp light fall across the tiny printed text. Next to the circled name, there's that strange symbol. To anyone else, it's just a few meaningless lines, but in Kane's mind, old buried fragments of memory start to shift. A set of coordinates, not for a digital map, but for an old system of secret meeting spots from the Cold War era. Inez glances at the paper, then at Kane. For a split second, he feels like her eyes aren't just asking where are we going, they're checking to see how much he knows. The music drops lower, colder, cut. The sound changes to wind passing through trees and the thin buzz of insects. An old Havana cemetery spreads out in the dark. Crooked crosses, cracked stone graves, angel statues missing heads. The moonlight is swallowed by heavy branches, leaving only thin strips of silver brushing across moss-covered tombstones. Kane and Inez walk between the rows, their steps crunching on dry leaves. With every step deeper inside, the city noise fades, replaced by the chill and the damp, heavy smell of stone and earth. Kane stops in front of the low stone grave, so worn the carved letters are almost gone. He pulls a small knife from his pocket and pops it open without a word. Inez looks at the gravestone, and something in her eyes tightens. The name carved there is an ordinary Cuban name, but the date of death is wrong. It lines up perfectly with the date an American double agent disappeared from U.S. records. Kane doesn't explain. He kneels, prying loose a cluster of small stones at the base of the grave. After a few seconds, the knife hits something with a dull cluck. A thin metal box wrapped in a yellowed plastic bag. He drags it out, brushes off the dirt, and opens it. Inside is a cheap USB drive, the kind you can buy at any street stall, and an old photo, printed on paper that has already started to turn yellow. The music swells just a little. In the photo, a man with glasses stares at the camera. His expression is stern, but his eyes don't quite belong to a loyal party officer. Next to him stands a teenage girl, hair tied back, eyes still young, but already wary. Kane doesn't need to look up to know Inez has gone still behind him. The narrator's voice drops. The man in the photo is Inez Delgado's father. In Aegis files, he appears as an internal source, which is a polite way to say double agent. A man crushed between two flags and eventually abandoned by both sides. The girl beside him is Inez, long before she became the woman standing in the dark behind Kane now. A cold gust of wind pushes through the graveyard, rattling plastic wreaths. Kane sets the photo aside and turns the USB over in his hand. This could be the key that leads to the Orchid List, or a trap planted long ago by the very people he thought were allies. Before he can think any further, a
harsh light cuts through the rows of graves. The music tenses up again. A sharp white beam sweeps left to right, a flashlight, then another. Boots grinding on gravel, metal clinking softly. Voices low in Spanish, and then in dry, perfect English. Target should be close. Watch your sectors. Not just Cuban cops, not only them. Kane instantly kills his own light and pulls Inez behind a large stone cross. Cold beams of light slice the air above them, gliding over statues, weeds, and cracked marble. Safety switches click off on several rifles. They didn't come to talk. Kane signals for Inez to circle wide, keeping the metal box with him. For a brief heartbeat, he sees her eyes. Not afraid, not exactly. More like weighing something. The first shot tears the silence apart. A bullet smashes into stone, spraying chips into the night. Kane slides to one side, answering with a quick burst that makes one of the flashlights jerk and spin. The beams dance across the headstones like frantic ghosts. In the chaos, he catches a glimpse of Inez farther away, half hidden behind a broken cross. She raises her hand, signaling, 2 fingers, then a fist aimed toward the advancing men. His heartbeat stutters. Is that a tactical signal, or an agreed sign to coordinate with them? There's no time to ask. A shadow looms behind him. A heavy, precise blow slams into the back of his skull. The world flips. Gunfire turns into a dull underwater roar. Flashlights smear into long streaks of light and then vanish. In the last second before the darkness closes over him, Kane hears a man's voice in clean American English. Secure the package. Langley wants him alive. The word Langley cuts through his fading thoughts. Then everything goes black.
The first sound that comes back to Kane isn't gunfire, it's water. A slow, steady drip from somewhere above, tapping against concrete. A sharp pain runs from the base of his skull up behind his eyes. The world crawls back into focus, a rusted metal ceiling, old wooden shelves, the sharp smell of machine oil and damp. He's sitting on a chair, hands cinched behind his back with plastic zip ties. This isn't an official interrogation room. It feels more like a warehouse near the docks, the kind of place you use to hide contraband or people. The music hums low, a cold, sparse synth. Footsteps. A man steps out of the shadow. Simple suit, loosened tie, sharp face with no expression at all. The narrator names him. He calls himself Spencer Hale, CIA. He doesn't need a badge. The way he stands, the way he scans the room, the way he looks at Kane like a thick file he's already read twice, it all says he lives behind the curtain where regular people never see. Hale speaks in a flat, almost tired voice. He says not to worry. They're not the enemy. They're just here to clean up the mess men like Kane accidentally create. Kane doesn't bite. His throat is dry, but his words come out hard. Where's the Orchid List? The music holds on one long, low note. Hale shrugs, as if someone just asked him about the weather. He explains that the Orchid List isn't just a list of agent names. It's a ledger of sins written across years of black operations. Assassinations disguised as car accidents, spontaneous coups, prisons that don't officially exist. All of it logged, detailed enough that if it ever saw daylight, an entire generation of leadership would burn with it. And in there, of course, are
mission codes Kane knows too well. Operations where he was told to pull the trigger and then ordered to forget. Hale says if the Orchid List falls into enemy hands, the United States loses more than a few hundred deep cover assets. It loses its pretty story. The illusion it tells the world about being the good guy in every headline. And us, he adds, we just want to take it back, drop it in some vault, lock the door, and throw away the key. So you, me, and the people you owe can keep breathing a few more years. Kane looks at him, and in his mind sees Lena, Inez, and other faces without names. If the CIA keeps the Orchid List, everything he's done stays buried. If it leaks, people like Lena, hiding in the shadows, could die before they even know what hit them. The music tightens, tense but contained. Hale steps closer, bending down to meet Kane eye to eye. He lays out a deal. Kane cooperates. He leads them to wherever the USB or any backup of the Orchid List is hidden. In return, his file, the things he's done, gets pushed even deeper down the system, out of reach of anyone, even people like El Mariposa. You want to pay back the debt you owe Lena and the others? The best way is to make sure nobody on this planet ever knows you existed. In the silence that follows, Kane realizes recovering the Orchid List isn't about choosing a side anymore. It's about choosing what he's willing to carry to the end of his life: guilt or truth. And in this damp warehouse by the docks, between the dripping water and the smell of oil, he understands that whichever way he chooses, the one who will be hunted to the very end will still be him.
When Kane opens his eyes again, he's no longer in the damp warehouse by the docks. Metal rattles, an engine hums steadily. Streetlight glows slide across the glass in brief flashes. He's in the back seat of a black SUV with tinted windows. His hands are still bound, but the zip ties are looser now. Two figures sit up front, a driver and a man holding a radio. Beside him, Hale sits like this is a routine commute, tightening his tie, perfectly at ease. The same calm face as in the warehouse, like abducting a man who died on paper is just another checkbox on a form. Outside, Havana at night rolls by. Narrow streets, old cars, decaying signs, and flickering neon. People still walking, still arguing, still laughing, with no idea they're watching a secret transfer slide past. Hale glances over, speaking softly like they're sharing a taxi to a conference. Think about my offer, Rourke. The whole world out there isn't always on fire. Most days it just smolders. Our job is to keep the flames off camera. Kane looks through the dark tint. He catches his own faint reflection, and he's no longer sure if he's the firefighter or the arsonist. The music swells, drums picking up. The SUV turns onto a wider street, washed in harsh white light. Low buildings line both sides. A few bars, some closed storefronts. Up ahead, Kane sees a truck parked crooked along the curb, blocking one lane. The driver swears under his breath, flips the indicator, ready to squeeze past. Kane feels something twist in his gut. The truck's cab is empty. Its tires are caked with fresh mud like it just came in from the outskirts. And behind it, where the streetlights don't quite reach, shapes are standing, too still. Every alarm he has left goes off. "Stop," Kane says, voice rough but sharp. The driver glances back. "What?" He doesn't finish. A white flash eats the front of the truck, flipping it sideways like cardboard. The shockwave punches the SUV, shattering glass, slamming noise and pressure into Kane's ears. The vehicle spins, slams into a utility pole, and comes to rest at a twisted angle. The music jumps, drums and bass pounding like a heart in panic. Screams rise from down the block. Metal clatters. Through smoke and dust, masked figures appear. Butterfly-shaped masks gleaming in the firelight. El Mariposa, or at least his people. Hale is already hunched low, as if he expected this. He draws a gun, yanking Kane down just as a burst of gunfire rakes the side of the SUV, tearing more glass and punching holes in the doors. Don't die here, Rourke. I haven't finished the paperwork to make you real again. The left-hand door is yanked open. One of Hale's security men folds in on himself, blood splashing the interior. Kane doesn't wait. He's been quietly sawing his wrists against the edge of the seatbelt anchor since he woke. Now the plastic tie snaps. He snatches a pistol from the floor, kicks the right-hand door open, and rolls out onto the street. Gunfire, shattered glass, Cuban bystanders screaming as they sprint for cover. Another car detonates at the corner, a fireball climbing up the side of a building. Havana is on fire, not in headlines, right in front of his eyes. Through the gunshots, another sound cuts in. An engine he recognizes, tires skidding on wet asphalt. A sky-blue vintage car screeches into view at the far end of the street, brakes screaming. The passenger door flies open. Inez, sweaty, dusty, eyes on everything at once. "Get in," she shouts, "unless you'd rather stay and be target practice for both CIA and Mariposa." Kane doesn't need a second invitation. He lays down a burst to force the butterfly mask to duck, then dives into the seat beside her. The engine roars. The car rockets out of the kill zone, leaving behind a Havana street glowing orange with fire, sirens wailing, people yelling, and masked figures already shifting position to continue the hunt.
Inez's old car tears through Havana's tight corners like it was built for nothing else. Tires screech on uneven cobblestones, reflecting the smear of yellow streetlights. Windows crack open as faces lean out, then quickly jerk back inside when twin headlights slash past in a blur. Kane looks over his shoulder. Behind them, a dark pickup truck bursts into view, high beams blazing. Figures in butterfly masks stand in the bed, rifles braced and ready. Farther back, he catches the wail of police sirens, a streak of red and blue trying to catch up. But it's not clear who they're coming for. The music tightens, drums beating faster. Inez grits her teeth, skimming so close to a wall the side mirror almost scrapes it off. She says, "Mariposa doesn't walk away mid-game. They killed the broker at La Sombra, hit the night market, now they're ambushing CIA. This is bigger than Havana." Kane watches the shaking speedometer needle creep past what this old car was ever meant to do. On the radio, a newsreader's voice suddenly cuts in over some distant reggaeton track. "As of a few moments ago, a violent explosion has just rocked an eastern Havana neighborhood. Early reports suggest involvement of an armed group and a wanted American national." The tiny screen on the dash flickers, trying to show a grainy black and white image. Kane only needs a second to recognize his own face, warped, blurry, but unmistakable. CIA has been busy. Anyone who sees him on the street from now on has already been told exactly what to think. "Congratulations," Inez says dryly. "You're officially tonight's breaking news." A sweep of headlight flashes across the rear window. The pickup is closing in, one masked man climbing up, resting his rifle on the cab roof. Kane ducks. "Hold on!" Inez snaps back. "Take in the alley!" The car yanks hard to the right, diving into a side street barely wide enough for one vehicle. The right side mirror clips the wall and explodes into shards. Behind them, the pickup tries to follow, its sides grinding against the bricks, sparks spraying. Kane leans out his window, firing at the front tire. The shot lands with a dull pop, and the truck jerks, slamming sideways across the alley, blocking the path of the police car that was racing in behind. Sirens, shouting, metal crunching, all smashed together into one messy roar. The music stays high, with icy synth notes laid over the top. Inez blasts across a small square, skidding past an old statue, then suddenly kills the headlights and dives into a dark, narrow lane, slamming the brakes. The engine chokes off. Silence crashes in, except for their pounding hearts and the faint metallic ticking under the hood. They sit in the dark, breathing hard. Outside, the sirens, shouting, and spinning tires roll past the mouth of the alley, rushing by without ever seeing them. After a long beat, when the noise had faded, Inez finally speaks, her voice lower. "You heard what Hale said, didn't you?" Kane nods, eyes still on the alley entrance. That Mariposa isn't just selling the list to enemies. That someone inside Aegis is buying. Inez lets out a laugh with no humor in it. Welcome to reality, Rourke. There's no us and them anymore. Just people willing to pay more. To bury the truth deeper.
Night at the Havana docks is a different kind of dark. Out here, the wind carries salt, oil, and rust. Between stacks of cargo containers piled like some bored god's toy bricks, the large corrugated warehouse sits still, a dull glow leaking from gaps around its doors. Kane and Inez move in from the shadows, slipping between containers. Waves slap quietly against hulls somewhere beyond. Metal beams hum softly with every gust of wind. They stop at a rusted side door, cracked just enough for them to squeeze through. The music tightens, low and coiled. Inside, the warehouse is a different world. Tall metal racks loaded with wooden crates and plastic cases. Folding tables cluttered with open laptops, screens full of scrolling code. Cables running across the concrete floor like exposed roots. Armed men pacing with rifles ready, butterfly masks glowing faintly under ceiling lights. Above, a metal catwalk runs along the length of the warehouse. Up there, a man in a tailored suit and a silver butterfly mask leans on the railing, looking down. El Mariposa. Kane and Inez creep closer to the cluster of tables bathed in pale screen light. A laptop comes into view, USB plugged in. Across its screen, a progress bar crawls forward. Upload, 61%, 62%. The Orchid List, slowly leaving the world of paper and code names, stepping into a place where no one can ever truly erase it. Kane scans the room. It's not just Mariposa. In a darker corner, another monitor shows a video call. Blurred faces, voices digitally warped, English, Spanish, other languages layered in. Invisible buyers. Inez whispers, close enough you can almost feel her breath in the listener's ear. You see it, right? Not just foreign enemies, they're selling each other out like an auction. Before Kane can answer, the warehouse explodes into motion. The music surges, drums pounding hard. The door facing the water slams open. A black-clad assault team floods in from the dock, flashlights and laser sights slicing the dust-filled air. American voices shout, "Federal agents, drop your weapons!" Almost at the same moment, the big land side doors crash inward. Cuban security forces pour in, rifles raised, commands barking in Spanish. 3 factions, 3 languages, 1 space. For a single held heartbeat, everyone understands that nobody is backing down. Then, the shooting starts. Gunfire rips through the air. Muzzle flashes strobe across crates and catwalks. Glass shatters, metal screams, people curse and scream and fall. Kane drags Inez down behind a stack of crates as a burst of bullets chews the rack above them, showering them with splinters and plastic. Above, El Mariposa doesn't panic. He steps back from the railing, snaps a glance at one of his men, and gestures. The man sprints toward the laptop, hand reaching for the USB. Kane moves first. He pops up and fires a single shot. The man drops before his fingers ever touch the keyboard. The progress bar jumps to 78%. Inez screams over the roar, "You have to stop the upload or destroy it." Stopping it means letting CIA or somebody else grab everything for themselves. Destroying it means erasing any chance of exposing the people who turned the Orchid List into a ledger of crimes. The music grinds down into a tight, strained pulse. Kane hurls a smoke grenade toward the center of the room, veiling lines of fire, then yanks Inez toward the metal stairs climbing up to the catwalk. Stray rounds clanging to the railing, spraying sparks. On the catwalk, veiled by drifting smoke, he sees Mariposa waiting, as if he always knew this confrontation had to happen here. There's no space left for introductions. They collide. These aren't wild bar punches. These are movements sharpened by too many operations and too many years of staying alive with both brains and fists. The metal grating booms under their boots every time a body slams into the railing. Below them, the gunfight keeps raging, but it sinks in the mix, becoming a distant storm under the close-up sounds of labored breathing, flesh hitting metal, boots scraping steel. At some point, Mariposa wrenches the gun from Kane's hand and aims it at his chest. But instead of firing, he tilts his head back and laughs behind the silver mask. "You really think you're different from me, Rourke? You get your hands dirty for a flag, I get mine dirty for whoever pays more. The only difference is the invoice." Out of the corner of his eye, Kane spots a thick cable running along the catwalk rails, dropping down toward the laptops, power and data in one line. He doesn't fire. He lunges. He drives his shoulder into Mariposa, twisting to use the momentum to drag them both toward the cable. In that breathless instant, he switches his grip and pulls the trigger. The bullet shatters the clamp holding the cable in place. Sparks burst. On the floor below, the laptop jolts, screen flickering. The progress bar claws its way to 92%, then freezes. Error messages spill across the display. As the connection dies, part of the data corrupted mid-transfer. Mariposa loses his footing, one hand clinging to the railing, the other fighting for control of the gun. Kane clamps down, both of them swaying over empty space, a maze of crates and shooters below. As the music stretches into a single high, strained note, Mariposa breathes through the mask. "No matter what you do, the truth always finds a way to leak out." Old bolts in the railing finally give up after years of rust. A section snaps free. Mariposa's last anchor vanishes. Metal, a body, crates, then silence. Kane lies on the catwalk, chest heaving, gun still in hand, barrel smoking. Below, the gunfire thins out, replaced by shouted orders, groans, and the crackle of radios. The dockside climax isn't over yet, but the listener understands that one fall just dragged down more than a single man. It pulled a piece of the truth right out of anyone's control.
The gun smoke at the docks finally begins to thin. Gunfire fades, leaving only a distant ship horn and the steady slap of waves against concrete. Inside the warehouse, people in jackets marked with federal insignia start rearranging the scene. Bodies in butterfly masks are dragged into a corner. Cuban forces stand back and watch, eyes cold, no telling how they're tallying this in their heads. El Mariposa lies twisted beside a shattered stack of crates, his silver mask broken in half, revealing a face more familiar with U.S. uniforms than silk suits. He isn't laughing anymore, but his words, "We're all ghosts of burned files," hang in the air like smoke. Kane stands back on the catwalk, looking down at the laptop still glowing on the floor below. The upload bar never reaches 100%. Most of the data sent has been chopped mid-transmission, fragments scattered, corrupted. A significant piece has been destroyed beyond recovery. But he knows, thanks to a script and as planted earlier, that one piece of the Orchid List, the part documenting black ops, not the agent names, has already been rerouted to an anonymous server somewhere far beyond Hale's immediate reach. The music has settled into a steady, heavy pulse. Later, the story is packaged neatly for the public. A violent clash between international criminal groups at the Havana docks. No CIA, no Aegis, no Orchid List. Hale appears beside Kane as if he'd never almost been roasted inside that USV. His tie is straight again, suit mostly unruffled. Only a small smear of dried blood on his cuff shows he was ever close. He looks at the frozen laptop screen and lets out a breath that's somewhere between frustration and relief. You've made this messy, Rourke, but at least now, nobody gets the full prize. He turns, voice dropping. You can still disappear. We bury your file deeper. People like Lena will never have to read your name in any leak. Kane doesn't answer immediately. Cut. Sound shifts to the rush of wind across a rooftop near the docks. Kane and Inez sit on the edge looking down at the containers, the ambulances, the scatter of blue and red lights pulsing like a wound being bandaged in a hurry. Inez holds an old phone with a cracked screen. She speaks lightly, as if talking about nothing important. I managed to save part of the data on the Black Ops. Not to sell, to keep around in case someday someone needs to tell the story right. Kane looks at her, then out toward the dark water. He could snatch the phone from her hand, force her to wipe everything, push the Orchid List back into the black hole Hale wants, that comfortable void where nothing exists. But he doesn't. The music flickers with a small brighter note, then settles again. I used to think, Kane says slowly, saving people meant protecting their secrets. Now I'm not so sure. He stands, straightening his jacket, like a man ready to walk out of Havana at a moment's notice. Keep it. Just don't let anyone be stupid enough to think it'll make heroes. The best thing it can do is tell off a few lies. Inez nods. In her eyes, there's agreement and a quiet fear for whatever comes next. The narrator closes. That night, Kane leaves Havana the way he arrived. No name, no papers, no trace in any official system. But somewhere out there, on a server nobody can quite pinpoint, a piece of the Orchid List has slipped out of the hands of those who believed they could own it forever. And in the vacuum Mariposa left behind, a new name begins to circulate quietly through underground channels. Spectral Node. Not an ending, just another layer of shadow waiting to be peeled back. You're listening to Midnight Action Stories, thrilling crime tales after dark. If you enjoy these late-night missions, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop your questions or theories in the comments below.